minute. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Housing and Community Services. I just went blank there. A Plain County Board of Commissioners meeting. There we go. And Happy New Year, everyone. Do we have any public comment? No.
Oh, we want to start out with adjustments.
No adjustments to the agenda. I'm sorry. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda? Okay, so then we're going to move on to Commissioner's business, and that's the election of a new chair. And so I'll be turning that over to Commissioner Stewart.
So this is the time when we elect the chair for this next, for the current year that we're in. So at this time, I would accept nominations for chair. You?
Shar Rivas, chair again.
Okay, so we have a nomination.
Second.
Second. Further nominations? Any further nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of Shar for our chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Awesome. Now back to you, Chair.
Okay, so we don't have any public comment, and then do we have any commissioners' response to public comment? There isn't any, and or issues and remonstrance? Nobody has anything to say? No emergency business? Okay, so then we're going to move on to administration reports, semi-annual implementation review of the 5-year strategic plan, and that would be Larry.
So this is the last year of...
Larry, can you make sure your mic's
Not on?
I'm not,
it doesn't sound like that one's working.
doesn't look like it's working.
That one isn't.
We got a battery issue or something.
Is that better?
Yep, much better.
There we go.
That's too loud. So this is HACS's 5th year of our 5-year strategic plan, and you, I guess Commissioner Stewart and Commissioner Sorensen, both here when the board first approved our plan. It's been a quick 5 years for me, and this will be my last time to report on the implementation of, in this case, our 2014 plan. So next year, there'll be a new 5-year plan. I'm very proud of how we've implemented our plans over the years. I have to thank Stan Biles, who some of you remember, for actually getting us going on this plan. It's I think it's unique. I haven't seen one like it, where we have specific goals, strategies, actions.
Larry, just a sec, please. Diana, that mic is actually working now. You're touching it, we're hearing it work, so. Thanks.
People who are responsible, timelines, and it's something that, as Stan said, it would be, all of our managers have it on their desks. We use it, we refer to it all the time, and I just think it's really a very, very good tool. So we have 2 items today, the implementation of last year's, and then Jacob will talk about next year's plan. So I want to touch on a few things that I think, well, they're all important, but just some of the highlights. So development has been big for HACSA over the last several years. We were able to get funded for Bascom Village Phase 2, and that's underway right now. We're very close to getting an investor for the tax credits. And Jacob will talk about all the other ones during the next year's plan. So how this all started, I don't know if you some of you remember. When I was appointed executive director, I think the biggest thing that the board wanted was a succession plan. They appointed me and said, okay, what's going to happen when you leave? That was the first thing they kind of said. So we worked on it. Again, Stan helped us, and we came up, and I have to thank Stan again. I mean, he said, well, you really need to recruit somebody to take your place, and it took a long time to actually convince this guy to come here, but I'm really glad he did. And I feel when I leave in less than six months now, that if you all appoint Jacob as executive director, I feel really good about leaving HACSA in good hands. It's been for 35 years, and it makes me feel really good about the transition. We also, during this last year, received 2 grants from Meyer Memorial Trust. One was to provide education for the Section 8 new law that was passed, where landlords now have to take applications from Section 8 applicants, where in the past they could just say no Section 8. So this is an education grant that is also tied to increasing access for low-income Latinos. And so we're partnering with Centro Latino Americano on implementation of that grant. The other grant was an advocacy grant, a housing advocacy grant, where part of that, as you all recall, is Housing America Month, where we've had an event each year. It's gotten bigger every year. Last year, besides Mayor Piercy, Mayor Lundberg, and I'm drawing a blank, Representative Hoyle was there, and also a young man that some of you know, Ethan Udosinata, who grew up in HACSA Public Housing and is now principal of Cottage Grove High School, which is quite an accomplishment. And he spoke. He spoke to my staff a few times, and always is very appreciative of being in HACSA Public Housing and how much it meant to him. So I feel really good about that. And I think that's about all I want to talk about, unless you have questions about any of the other items. We'd be glad to answer questions.
Any questions? I just have a comment about the Housing America. I thought that it was just very moving, that what he talked about, because one of the things he talked about is a student that came in and had the same address that he had growing up, and how that really just kind of, made him think about where he had started out and where he is now. And I just think that was an amazing speech that he gave.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question. Is this the appropriate time to laud you for your 35 years of work, or is anything appropriate for that?
Well, I'm going to be around for 6 more months, so.
Then I'll bite my tongue just a little bit, but really, once again, thank you very much. You've been a pillar of strength for the entire community. And Jacob, I'm pleased to work with you also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Larry and Jacob, maybe questions for both of you on this. So we've had a changeover now back in Washington, D.C. So it's now Republican control both houses. And on the U.S. Senate side, I think HUD is under appropriations. And any idea, any thoughts? I don't know who it is. I think it may be Senator Shelby from Alabama, maybe the new appropriations chair. I don't know his attitude toward HUD. And I don't know if you have any information on that, because I'd be interested to know. I know that Senator Merkley is on appropriations, which is obviously something that we can work with on that. Any thoughts on the change and in particular what that would do in respect to HUD funding at least in the next 2 years?
Yeah, well, I think, the first thing, I think we're fortunate that we did get an appropriations bill, so we are funded for this year. As you know, that doesn't always happen. I think our funding could be worse. It's still pretty bad. It's about the same as it was last year. And, you know, honestly, there's not much, I don't think, that we can do right here. I mean, Jacob and I are both on committees. We're both going back to D.C. in a few months to talk to our congressional delegation, but they all are very supportive, particularly Senator Merkley, I think. I mean, he's always been an advocate, and they all are. You know, like we have for the past several years, we're going to... The one thing that's never happened is that we've cut our services to clients, and we've done it with fewer people, and we'll continue that.
Thank you.
I have a question on going forward, what's happening now and then going forward, and it really kind of goes to the 2-year question. Section 8 is closed, and you were going to close the public housing list in January. Is that still happening, or has that happened yet?
For one-bedroom Eugene Springfield units.
Do you have any sense of when that might be opened up again, or there's just no way of...
So what we've done is closed it, and then we'll do what we would call a waiting list kind of management mailing. So we mail out a letter and have people respond to us if they're still interested in being on the waiting list. That's a way to kind of cull the waiting list and make sure that it's as accurate as possible. And then we have to just monitor sort of our vacancy and occupancy, and then we can kind of project when we would potentially reopen the waiting list. I would say that on a more positive note, we are about to reopen the Section 8 waiting list, so that'll reopen in mid-February, I believe. So that'll be an opportunity to kind of get people on the waiting list and continue to serve the community.
Are there one-bedroom apartments available outside of Eugene Springfield?
There is still a way for one-bedrooms, but it's much quicker to get into the outlying areas than it is in the Eugene and Springfield area. This is an area that I think we'll continue to educate the board about. We recently met with St. Vincent de Paul, and in particular, we believe that there is a very strong need for one-bedrooms in our community. So as we develop new units over the coming years, we need to build as many one-bedrooms as we can.
But you don't anticipate any sort of cutting back over the next couple of years of people who are already in housing?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Hugh, for bringing that up. Just a question. I had a discussion with a few people this week regarding, this last week, regarding the abundance of student housing that's being created around the university, and also the potential for that leaving other housing available for low-income housing stock. Have you had any discussions at your level yet about that, and are we progressing in that direction?
Yeah, that issue's come up, and I think as jurisdictions, and when I say jurisdictions, I think between the county and the cities and HACSA, we need to try to quantify what that opportunity could be, because I have heard people speculate about a potential influx of inventory, but the actual numbers and how we would turn those into affordable housing is another question. So let me give that some thought about how we could actually quantify that.
Thank you, Jack. Madam Chair, This is a real opportunity, I believe, because there is a lot of high-rise apartments being built for students, which leaves a lot of 8-plexes, 16-plexes, even converted single-family dwellings that are going to be available that really are no longer particularly attractive to some of the new, to the students of the University of Oregon who may want a newer apartment in a little bit closer in setting. So I view that as an opportunity for us to, if not necessarily for HACSA, but just for level housing in general, which I know you're very interested in. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, sorry, I'm coughing. It's my mouth is dry. So, I understand that. Okay, so you're going to talk about the order?
Yep.
Okay, so then we're going to, if there's no further discussion, then we'll move on to order number 15-01-13 01H.
Great.
Sorry.
For a minute.
Yeah, I'm going to excuse myself.
So what I'm going to do is just kind of overview the plan for 2015, and then I'll come back and touch on a couple highlights. But pages 1 through 3 are really focused on our real estate development and our fundraising efforts. The biggest section is pages 3 through 7, and that's really around some internal improvements at HACSA. And then pages 7 and 8 are really about how we're helping people become self-sufficient and move kind of up and out of our housing and our programs. So to just kind of highlight for you some of our development activity, as Larry mentioned, we do have a very active real estate development portfolio. I would say that in HACSA's history, there's probably not been a time when we've had as many projects as we have now in our pipeline. We have increased our internal capacity just to continue to push all of these projects forward, and I'll highlight for you the kind of the handful of big ones in my mind. So the first one is 6th and Oak, which is a partnership between HACSA and the county. We are actively working with the county on some environmental contamination issues, and at the same time we're doing some financial modeling of 2 different tax credit structures. We do have Jim McCoy, our former real estate development director, is working for us part-time, and so he's supporting us in doing some of that financial modeling, and we're really lucky to have him given his experience. So stay tuned on that. The sub-goal number 4, which is on page 8, is the Small Assistance Demonstration Program. So we've applied to sell 51 single-family and duplex units around Springfield and Eugene, and then we will take that money and reinvest it in some of our newer projects. So we do have to bring those units back into the community, but it does give us money to help contribute to both new construction, and we'll also take a significant portion of those funds and reinvest it into our existing public housing and non-public housing portfolio. So we have a lot of assets that we need to fix up, and we'll use some of that money to do that. So there'll be a robust plan around that whole program, and we'll be presenting it to you as we bring the details together. At the bottom of page 1, Larry mentioned Bascom Village Phase 2. The tax credit pricing has been extremely advantageous to the project, so that's a sign that our economy is recovering here in this community. On the top of page 2 is Glenwood Place. We just received some financial support from the city of Springfield to do some site planning, so we continue to work on that project. And I think you'll recall that there is a regulatory issue that we have to request a waiver for, so we're in the process of drafting that in partnership with the city of Springfield and the city of Eugene. The Oaks at 14th, which is the second one on the top of page 2, is a new project. We've briefed Commissioner Farr, and it's a partnership between HACSA and sponsors, and we do have a property on Oak Patch, and so we're starting to pull that project together. Because of who sponsors serve, it's going to require an active and robust kind of engagement with the neighborhood, so I'm sure that you'll hear things about the project, and if you'd like a one-on-one briefing, we'd be happy to provide that to you. And then the third one down is the last one I'll mention in our development portfolio, which is a Housing First project. Commissioner Farr and I are both on the Poverty and Homelessness Board. And we have been discussing pulling together a Housing First project, which would be taking folks that are chronically homeless off the street and putting them into housing, and then surrounding them with services to try to get them, more medically healthy and more mentally healthy. So we have begun kind of some financial modeling in partnership with Denny's, and there'll be plenty more opportunities to talk about that project. So that's kind of the highlight from the real estate development world. Before I move to the next section, any questions at all? Great. So like I said, pages 3 through 7 are really focused on internal improvements, and I won't go into those in any detail, other than just to point out one new strategy that we're using within the organization, and that's on the bottom of page 3. And under sub-goal 2, there's a reference to a breakthrough strategy team. This is a new kind of organizational development method that we're using to tackle challenging problems within the agency over a 12-week period of time. So Stan Biles, who helped build the strategic plan, is also helping us with this process. But how it works is you just bring some of your brightest and smartest employees together, and you ask them to solve a problem in 12 weeks or less. They meet weekly. They report to me weekly, and my job is to really help them and clear any barriers out that they're facing. So just as one example, when you approved the last budget, you authorized us to take $300,000 out of the public housing reserve. That was in order for us to hire more staff to get ahead of the work, basically. But that's not sustainable. So one of the breakthrough teams is going to be focusing on in 12 weeks or less, coming up with a plan so that we don't take more money out of reserves, so we are able to operate within our means, basically. So that's just one example. So that's all I would highlight for you from kind of internal organizational improvements. And then the last thing I talk about is kind of our self-sufficiency efforts. More and more, we're talking within the agency about how do we help people come into our programs, and then how do they leave our programs more quickly, so that we are serving more and more people with our programs. There are some folks that will come into our programs and stay for many years, and we want to understand why that is, and we want to help them basically move up and out of our housing. So I really see the next strategic plan that we'll be building over the coming year focusing more on how do we help people get the support they need and kind of move on with their lives up and out of our housing. So that'll be an area of expansion in our next strategic plan. So that concludes my kind of overview of the 2015 plan, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Commissioner Massengale?
I have one of those questions that you hate to ask because you know it's probably sort of is a dumb question, but is there a HUD requirement that Section 8 and public housing be two separate divisions within? I know there are different rules and regulations, but you can't consolidate that at all, can you?
Not at this time. I wanted to make a brief comment when Commissioner Lyken asked about the new Congress. We do think there's an opportunity with the new Congress to pursue deregulation to a greater level than we've been able to so far. And there is a program that HUD has called Moving to Work, where people can basically merge the two programs or move money between the programs. It's a very flexible and powerful tool, but we don't have that designation. So we think the new Congress may be interested in deregulation, and they may open up the opportunity for us to pursue that flexibility.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lyken?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with that, Jacob, I think what would be helpful maybe is if you might be able to put together some talking points, so maybe we can reach out to Dan Whalen from Senator Merkley's office and maybe just touch base on that if you believe it'll be beneficial. The other is I really want to say thank you to you, but also thank you to Larry for hiring Jacob. I must tell you, Jacob has been outstanding. I don't know about, I think all of us here on this board have been getting a lot of phone calls from people asking about HACSA-related issues, and as a board member, I must tell you, I'm not the most knowledgeable individual in the world, but I must tell you, it's been fantastic to forward that to Jacob. His response has not only been outstanding to the client, but when an answer has been prepared or has been met, he keeps me in the loop. So thank you, Jacob, for that. Larry, you're great wisdom on bringing Jacob on board, because I was so fond of Dorothy in the past, where she, in my experience, even though I worked with her a short time here at the board, was very much the same thing. So I just want to say thank you on that. And because, first of all, with someone like myself who doesn't have the knowledge that obviously you do, those emails are key, because if I'm asked out in the public, I can have a response. And so thank you. Great work on that. I just can't thank you enough on the staff response. Very, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Just a quick comment about the Oaks at 14th. You're fortunate that Representative Hoyle, that represents that area around Oak Patch, has her district office co-located at the sponsor's site there on 99 Roosevelt. And Commissioner Stewart, who also represents that area, has spent years on the Public Safety Coordinating Council and is very familiar with that program and knows that program well. So you have two people that represent that area that can meet with the community and explain the program well and maybe calm some people's nerves and all that. So I look forward to that moving forward, because Sponsors is a great organization, and the need for that transitional housing is so great. So I appreciate that project. So I look forward to that one moving forward.
Any other comments?
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to move approval of Order 15-1-13-01H in the matter of approving the agency's 2015 strategic plan.
Second. Hughes, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion passed. Okay, so no executive session today. And do we have any other business? No? So I would just like to say, Larry, that last time we spoke, I told you that I had went to a OHA, Oregon Health Association, for Trillium in Portland, and that I was just ecstatic when I found that there was a health and housing breakout session. So, of course, I went to it, and since then, I know that, you had expressed it'd be great if we could get them here. So I'm working on that, and Trillium's working on that, and we're going to make sure that Home Forward comes down and that we have that discussion with them before you retire. So it's in the works.
Great, thank you.
So if there are no other comments, okay, then this meeting is adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shar. Shar, if you don't mind, before you head out. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Lane County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, January 15th, 2015 to order. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. Can somebody? Thank you, Trevor. No public comment. No one signed up for public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to address the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to Commissioner's response to public comment and/or other issues or remonstrance. Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it was sometime last week, there was an editorial by the RG on the county needed a backup plan for road fund, and I actually was one who somewhat appreciated their editorial. I thought most of the information they had in there was I thought very solid, so what I wanted to do real quickly is provide an update. Yesterday in Salem yesterday, AOC Legislative Committee did adopt the AOC Transportation Steering Committee principles, and that also included the adoption of the Oregon Transportation Forum Plan. So it's 12 items in the plan that will be supported. I will tell you, not all the issues in there were the county support, but I think what we decided to do is that because this plan was adopted in an all or nothing, is either vote for the plan or do not. And because the vast majority, which I'd say at least 80% of what's in there, the counties did support, and I'm talking about the AOC, I think it's a real good roadmap to work with our legislature on what I view will be a transportation package of some sort coming out. And so I think the response to that is that there's clearly a backup plan, not only with Lane County, but I think through counties throughout the state, and we look forward to our work with the legislature on this. The other is, and this is something I know that Commissioner Stewart's been involved in, so the AOC Legislative Committee did adopt a resolution to request the state to study the transfer of certain federal lands to the state of Oregon. So that was voted on. Wasn't quite unanimous. I think there were 2 no votes is all throughout the entire committee. It was a good discussion, a lot of information passed out. So Commissioner Stewart, thank you for your leadership on that committee. And these were a couple of highlights that I just wanted to provide with at the legislative committee yesterday. And but the legislative committee did adopt that. And again, it's a study, and that's what we're requesting. And where that will go, I don't know at this point in time. I'm sure Commissioner Stewart probably has more information on that. But I just wanted to highlight the Transportation Committee and something that I've been spending almost a year on, working with the Oregon Transportation Forum and other leaders throughout the state on putting together a proposal on a package that will be beneficial to the counties and local government, and that includes the cities throughout the state. So I was one who was not really offended by the editorial. I thought they made some good points, but I think it's important to note that there are backup plans in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stewart.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to build a little bit on the comments that Commissioner Lyca made. First of all, the adoption or the moving forward of requesting the legislature to study the potential request to ask the federal government to transfer federal timberlands and rangelands to the state has really been built on and actually quite passionate by many of the commissioners in the rural areas in eastern Oregon and some of the southern counties, and it recognizes that there's a pretty strong movement right now in Utah and other states to bring this question forward. So in essence, we recognize that there might be some possibility there, but we're asking the legislature to appropriate funds to actually study it and make sure that it's right for the state to even request them and not just go in there blindly. So it's really begging the question, does it make sense for Oregon with what our values are? So it's nice to see that will move forward. I have no idea as to what the appetite of the legislature will be. Our projected costs to actually do a full-blown assessment of that request came from Mason Gerard, and it was about a $1.2 million assessment cost. So that's a pretty steep cost with the other issues that are facing the state. I wanted to also build, and I thank you for, Commissioner, for bringing up the backup plan. On Thursday, we had an ONC meeting, and at the ONC meeting, we were told that there is a great deal of effort right now by the leadership in the House to approve a 2014 SRS payment So once again, that brings in the backup plan that's necessary. We are in full support of trying to see that move forward out of the House. There's some real optimism that could move out and go before the Senate before the end of this month, in hopes that really we have about 120 days to see a 2014 payment be approved and still be meaningful to our county budgets for the 2014 year. There's also a commitment by leadership in the House to put together a longer-term, potentially a multi-year SRS payment that would include some level of management. At this point right now, we don't know what that level of forest management would be, but they have made the commitment that this next year that's a high priority. So we have heard loud and clear from our federal partners that the SRS payments are very difficult to continue, and we are still moving on that front. I consider that to be part of the backup plan, but really for us to bring some assurance to our citizens and be able to maintain within our ability here locally, I believe that us having some bare minimum resources that we can get the citizens to support will help us bring some, guaranteed level of maintenance and being able to address the needs of the citizens in our transportation system.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about the effort that is being made in Washington, D.C., unfortunately in our new Congress, to put bigger trucks on U.S. roads and interstates. And the U.S. Department of Transportation found that these multi-trailer trucks, the doubles and triple trailer trucks, expect an increase of 11% overall fatal crash rate than single trailer combinations. And also, double trailer trucks have an 11% higher fatality rate than is associated with single trailer trucks. ODOT, that's the, U.S. DOT, the U.S. Department of Transportation review of 30 years of subsidies finds that the gross vehicle weight is associated with a higher crash rate, and that was a study that Congress ordered in 2011 that they completed in 2013. I think another crucial thing is that trucks receive a $2 billion national subsidy, and that bigger trucks mean bigger subsidies. Highways and bridges are in bad shape in the United States because we don't have the resources to keep these facilities in shape, and yet nearly every single truck trip in the United States is an exercise in deficit spending because these trucks don't cover the cost of the damage they do to our roads, and that allowing heavier weights on U.S. interstates and highways means a bigger spending and bigger deficits. As we all know, the U.S. Interstate Highway Trust Fund is nearly broke, and the most recent federal study looked at this says that a 80,000-pound single trailer truck pays only 80% of the damage that truck causes to the public road infrastructure. A 110,000-pound triple trailer truck pays only 70% of the damage that they do. So I think it's really important that the board take an interest in the topic of the federal legislation that would allow for greater truck weights, because obviously from just the standpoint of the cities and county and the state here within Lane County, we have a big financial investment, and some of the folks from our own staff have testified to a $1 billion investment that we have in public infrastructure, and I think we need to make sure that the trucks are paying their fair share. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to spend a quick, Commissioner Farr.
Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner Sorensen, for pointing that out. Did you say a 30% increase in fatalities attributed to oversized trucks?
I think it was less than that.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I wrote
It
down
was
30.
an increase. See, let me get that.
While you're looking at that up, I spent some time
It's
commuting
an
this.
11% overall higher fatal crash rate.
11%, thank you. I drove to Salem yesterday, and it really is interesting to see the impact of trucks on a two-lane freeway, which is what we have, the 50-mile stretch between here and Salem is pretty
Commissioner Farr, could you aim your mic more towards your mouth? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm seeing the audience.
Yeah, the impact that trucks have on a two-lane freeway of switching in between lanes, and every time a triple truck switches, it really creates an impact that lasts for miles and miles behind it. And I see, what happens is people hit the gas to get around that truck before it hits the left lane, and I can understand the impulse to do that. Thank you, Commissioner Sorensen. I wanted to thank both Commissioner Stewart and Commissioner Lycan for Mr. Chair, for the interest that they pay in both the federal government and the state government, and staying in close contact and bringing all the issues back to us that before they become an issue here, we begin to hear about them from you guys because of the attention that you're paying to it. I really appreciate that. It's, the heads up that we get about the happenings in Congress, and Commissioner Stewart being as closely involved as he is with the ONC counties and with timber funding and the other issues. Of course, it means a great deal to every effort that we're doing here in Lane County, so thank you very much. I had a chance, what that is an indication of is how this board, my short 2 years on the board, I've noticed how this board is very interested in, even more all the time, of working with our partner governments, whether it be the state, whether it be the cities or with the legislature, to make sure that we're maximizing the use of our resources. And I really see us moving in that direction. I had a chance last week to attend, as well as the State of the County address, I attended the State of the City in Springfield and the State of the City in Eugene. And both State of the Cities talked about a really strong effort that is occurring right now, that's happening around us, regarding the consolidation of services between the two cities, Springfield and Eugene. That is fire services. We're not at the end of the consolidation yet, but we're way past the beginning. And by all accounts, whether it's by the firefighters, by the administration, by the fire chiefs, it's working very, very well. A few obstacles that we have to come, but it's a good indication of the amount of money that can be saved by consolidating services and making certain that we're all pulling in the same direction and not working either parallel to each other using the same resources or doubling the use of resources, or actually in some cases working against each other. So what's happening with the fire departments in Eugene and Springfield, which is now one fire department, is the Eugene Springfield Fire Department, is really an example that we can take a look at to see how things can be done, even when the obstacles may seem insurmountable, which some of the obstacles to consolidating the fire departments when it began about 4 years ago, a little bit before that even, seemed insurmountable. How can you address this particular issue or that particular issue? Well, it does happen, and it's something that we need to pay attention to in order to, once again, maximize our resources and make certain that we're working together and not either in parallel or against each other. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Farr. So I wanted to spend a minute and congratulate the national champions, the Ohio State University, and congratulate the commissioners of Franklin County who will be sending their basket along shortly. But I also wanted to spend a minute to say go Ducks and how proud I am of our Ducks. Pac-12 champions, Rose Bowl champions, and the Heisman Trophy winner. You can't have a much better season than that, other than if they had actually won last night. But they did play for the national championship. Nebraska and Texas didn't play for the national championship. LSU and Auburn didn't play for the national championship. USC didn't play for the national championship. Notre Dame didn't. Michigan didn't. UVA, West Virginia, Virginia Tech. Think of all the other teams that did not play for the national championship last night, and mostly the Dogs of UW did not play for the national championship last night. Congratulations to the Oregon Ducks for a great season. Congratulations to The Ohio State University. I've lost a couple bets on that. It was great fun. You brought a lot of positive attention to Eugene, Springfield, Lane County in general. Marcus Mariota, what a great representative for this area, and for the state of Hawaii also. So congratulations, Ducks, and with that, we'll move on. And I'll spare you the fight song one more time. So moving on to the consent agenda. Oh, first, any emergency business? Seeing no emergency business, let's move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimous. And moving on to item 6A, order
10 o'clock time turn.
Oh, sorry. 6B. We'll skip over 6A.
I think they're all three tied together.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, if you would like, we could take 6C.
6C, okay.
Marcia Edwards is here, and if you'd like to take that one.
That's right, the first two are tied together. Let me, 6C, order number 15-01-1306, in the matter of appointing a performance auditor, and directing the Human Resources Director to negotiate terms of employment and authorizing the board chair to execute the final employment agreement. Marcia.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for having me this morning. Well, as you'll recall, back in November, you asked that the Temporary Performance Audit Committee act as the interview team for the position of Performance Auditor. So we have since completed our work. We conducted initial interviews and then final interviews, and are here to present, are here to present the name of Shanda Miller as our selected candidate. Shanda has a master's in public administration and also a bachelor's in environmental science. She's been working with the State Auditors Division for over the past 10 years doing this very same type of work.
Excellent. Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you. First of all, Ms. Edward, I want to thank you for scheduling an appointment for me to meet with Ms. Miller. That was, I enjoyed the meeting very much and appreciated getting to ask her some questions and learn more about her background. This process, this is really a board position, and we went through a little different process. Usually the entire board's involved in the hiring, but I appreciate that there was a committee that went through that, and again, getting to meet the recommended candidate. I'm not sure if everybody on the board, but I wanted to share just a little piece of information that I learned. As you know, when I first came to the board 10 years ago, we had an internal auditor, and we had a couple different people fill that position. And then due to budgetary constraints, and essentially a retirement of the performance auditor that we had, we left that position vacant. And in conversation with Ms. Miller, she offered up a little piece of information that I thought was really kind of neat, at least to me, was that she came here to the U of O, got her degree, decided to continue to live here in Eugene, and she had the desire that she wanted to be the internal auditor for Lane County. So she called up and talked to her former internal auditor, talked about what are some of the good things that some of the special education, maybe some certifications that she should try to acquire to really be the best that she could be in position for Lane County. And the internal auditor at the time, Mr. Bonzer, he gave her some advice. She took it quite seriously. She went out and acquired some additional education and certifications, preparing herself. And I think she's been waiting in the wings, hoping that someday we would add this position back. So I just really felt, she's very very qualified, and she went that extra step to really learn about the position, to get additional certifications, and I'm very supportive and impressed, and if the board concurs, looking forward to her joining the team and being a very positive contributor to our organization.
So I've got Commissioner Lyken, and Commissioner Farr, and then Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as you know, the Finance and Audit Committee was involved in the interview process. And I first of all, I would just want to say thank you to staff for bringing what I thought were two outstanding finalists. And in my view, it was enough where both Commissioner Farr and I requested additional interviews with both candidates. And it was one of those situations where I'm not sure we could have gone wrong, but it did, at the end of the day, I think the choice that's before you, I believe, is the right choice. And but I want to say thank you very much. The questions, I will tell you, the questions were they were good questions. They were solid, and both candidates they have different approaches, obviously, in how they answer and how they and their responses. But I just really want to say thank you for allowing us to because we had a choice, and it was a great choice. And I want to say thank you, Marcia, and your staff for bringing the finalists to us. I'm very supportive of this today, and on this motion. I think what it really came down to was just the background, and she's a professional auditor, and I think that's really where I think the bottom line is how we need to approach this. So very, very good job. I just want to, again, can't say enough thank you, and also both candidates, being accessible for that request that we both had, and it was something we both needed, I think, in order to make that decision. So thank you very much. Very supportive of this, and looking forward to moving forward. And again, I want to say thank you to Commissioner Stewart and Sorensen for really pushing this idea last year and to get us where we are. Thank you.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Lyken, for chairing the committee. It was a lot of work, and the two finalists, as Commissioner Lyken said, I'll restate that, had very different approaches, and it gave us a chance to position the two approaches and to see which one felt more appropriate for the recommendation that this committee made. I'd also like to thank the committee that took part in the interviews. Once again, it wasn't a short process, wasn't a slow process, and very deliberative. And Commissioner Stewart and Commissioner Sorensen deserve accolades for bringing this forward. This is a way that we're going to make certain that Lane County government is accessible more to the public on a regular basis, and make certain that, as one of the candidates said, that people are caught doing things right. That's what we're all about, is making sure that people are caught doing things right, because by and large, people in this organization are doing things right, and there's one further opportunity for people in the general public, to see that things are happening in a wide open fashion, that they can examine and know that it's being examined independently, and we'll have the results that are available for all to see. So once again, should Commissioner Lyken make this motion, I'll wait for another member of the commission that wasn't on the interview committee to make the second, should that happen. But like Commissioner Lyken, I think we have made the correct choice. We had two fantastic final candidates, and I look forward to moving down the road and making this happen. Thank you very much, Ms. Miller.
Thank you.
Ms. Edwards, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you very much. I really appreciated the opportunity to meet the candidate that emerged from the process. So I wasn't involved in the committee, but I really enjoyed meeting her. I think in addition to her educational background and her contacting Lane County about being a performance auditor here and following up with a really very important assignment in the state of Oregon, where she's been a performance auditor and now a senior performance auditor. I think it's worth noting that her practical experience in the field of public budgeting is a really big, important asset. And she had volunteered and was appointed to the Eugene City Budget Committee as a citizen living here in Eugene, and that's a very good experience, I think, for someone that's coming into this process, is to kind of have the experience of what it's like as a public budget committee member to actually go through, what public money ought to be spent on, and what more money ought to be spent on, and what less money ought to be spent on. And I think that makes her a good candidate. I suspect, though, the major thing is that she's been involved with virtually all of the major performance auditors that exist in Oregon for a number of years, and her facility and familiarity with the kinds of issues that a performance auditor is going to deal with is really great. So I know that Commissioner Stewart and I have been through a number of iterations of this process, and I'm very optimistic that this is the right fit at this time, and I'm really glad we're moving ahead on this.
Thank you. And I just want to say I was impressed with Ms. Miller as well. Her knowledge coming out of the Secretary of State's Audit Division is unimpeachable. She understands that every program and department has a different set of legal requirements they have to perform under, and what the first questions you need to ask are, what granting agencies are you working with, and what are their rules, and what are the laws pertaining to your particular programs, and understanding all that information first before you even get into where you're going with the programs and all. And I really look forward to this, having back this position and having that extra piece of transparency and an outside third-party look into some of our programs and departments, so that the citizens of Lane County can feel like their money is being spent efficiently and in the way it's supposed to be spent. And this is on top of, we've got the audit coming out on the jail levy in 2 weeks before the board, and we're just that continuing commitment this board has to being clear and transparent and making sure we're spending the public's money just the way they asked us to. So I really appreciate being able to fill this position. I appreciate the work of the committee and the work of our HR department to get to this point. So with that, Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move approval of Order 15-01-13-06, in the matter of appointing a performance auditor, directing the Human Resources Director to negotiate the terms of employment, and authorizing the board chair to execute the final employment agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the motion, I'd like to point out also that I really appreciate the way Mr. Mokrzycki took a hold of this. Once he heard about it from the previously mentioned commissioners, from Commissioner Stewart and Commissioner Sorensen, it became a really important issue for you to deal with. And I believe that you really ran this through on a very fast track. I said the process was slow, but the track was fast. That we got to the end of the process in, within less than a year from the time that you were appointed as the new county administrator. Further indication that we made the right decision with our new county administrator. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. So we are about 3 minutes early for our 10 o'clock time certain. And it looks like everybody is here for a 10 o'clock time certain, so I'm going to take the liberty of moving a little bit faster than our schedule said and get people to move to the table, hoping that by that time it will actually be 10 when we start the item. So moving to item 6A, order 15-01-13-04, in the matter of approving the tentative agreement between Lane County and the Administrative Professional Association of Lane County, Inc., And also, I think we're going to take up at the same time Order 1501, 1305, although we'll have separate motions in the matter of approving the tentative agreement between Lane County and Lane County Association Local 626. And we have Inga Onrud, Employee and Labor Relations Manager. Thank you, Inga.
Thank you, Chair Bozovich. And I have with me Andrea Nagels from County Council. We are here to ask the board to approve a tentative agreement between the Administrative Professionals Association of Lane County Incorporated, and in the audience we do have a representative from Admin Pro, the president, Ed Daniels. Unfortunately today, Rick Keene, the president of 626, was unable to attend. He is another meeting out at Short Mountain, so he apologizes for that, wanted me to pass that along. We entered into negotiations. As the board is aware, both of the contracts with 626 and the Administrative Professionals Association are set to expire on June 30th, 2015. And what we have done is we've entered into a tentative agreement to roll over the current contracts with 626 and the Administrative Professionals Association until June 30th, 2016. And part of that agreement is approving a 1.5% COLA, cost of living adjustment, for both 626 and Admin Pro. And what we have in the board packet for you is that due to the health insurance savings that we incurred for the budget for fiscal year 14-15, more than covers the 1.5% COLA for both of these associations.
Thank you. Any questions for staff at this time? Commissioner Stewart.
I don't have any questions, but I wanted to thank staff for their work on this. I want to thank the Mr. Daniels and Mr. King through 626 for being supportive of the contract negotiations. Both those unions in the 10 years that I've been here have been very supportive. In fact, they've over time have led the way in some of the changes that we've had here around healthcare. These savings that we've had the last few years wouldn't have been possible without their leadership and support in making that happen. So I appreciate their hard work and their willingness to look at this and consider, moving their contract negotiations out for another year with this activity. So, again, I just want to say thank you and look hopefully to the board to support this.
Thank you, Commissioner Stewart. Any further? Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, a great deal of work goes into such negotiations and finalizing such a contract that really isn't always heralded. But all of the meetings that took place, and I'd like to extend my appreciation and thanks to you and your department, and also to the members of the unions that engaged in the contract with you. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you very much. I just want to thank not only the folks sitting right here in front of us that have worked so hard on this negotiation, this contract, but also the employee representatives. I think, as has been mentioned, it takes a lot of hard work to put together these agreements, and there's got to be a lot of energy expended and a lot of nuances and details worked out, and I appreciate the fact that you guys have made it easier for us to, to come here and hear that this has been worked out and agreed to, and that we have a contract that is submitted to us, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
So with that,
thank you,
Mr. Chair. We'll take them, I assume, one by one.
Yes,
but so I'll move approval of order 15-01-13-04 in the matter of approving the tentative agreement between Lane County and the Administrative Professional Association of Lane County, Inc.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion to the motion? I'd like to just very quickly, and I'll say this for both of these agreements, I really appreciate the cooperative work that's come out of these two bargaining units. Both of them were the ones that stepped forward and proposed a major change in their health insurance programs that allowed the county to save approximately $2 million a year in our budget in a repetitive fashion, just in changing when we got all 7 bargaining units to move to those programs. And I can't tell you how much that meant to our ability to balance our budget with the declining SRS payments. And once again, they're stepping forward and allowing us to save a considerable amount of money by pushing the contract date out. And at the same time, it was their change in the health insurance programs that brought about the lower premiums that are actually paying, more than paying for the COLA they're getting as part of this extension of their contracts. So I just really want to appreciate both the Administrative Professional Association of Lane County and Lane County Association Local 626 for being such a cooperative, forward-thinking group of employees that really has the best interests of Lane County as a whole and their citizens at heart. These are the folks that make sure that your roads are in safe operating condition, that your landfill is there. You know, they're out there doing the hard work. They're the folks when you're home during an ice storm for 2 or 3 days. They're out there for taking 24-hour shifts, pulling the branches off the road so that when you do finally decide to leave your home, the roads are clear. So I really want to appreciate these folks and their cooperative nature, and it just speaks volumes to how much they're willing to work with us to make sure Lane County works for you. So thank you. Any further comment?
One more thing, if I apologize if I wasn't clear before. I want to make sure that I have on the record that the 1.5% COLA is effective this fiscal year. It's effective January 3rd, 2015. So that means that these two unions have agreed to, because they're not entering negotiations, they essentially will not receive any COLA for next fiscal year. So I just wanted to make sure that in case I skipped over that.
Yeah. Understood. I appreciate it. Again, just one more example of how they're working together with us. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of Order 15-01-13-05 in the matter of approving the tentative agreement between Lane County and the Lane County Association Local 626.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, and thank you. Moving on to item 7A, Public Works. Order 15-01-13-07 in the matter of authorizing the submission of a $412,000 brownfields cleanup grant to the Oregon Business Development Department for cleanup of county-owned property identified as McHale's Cleaners at 1060 Olive Street, Eugene. And is Mr. Turk here?
Mr. Chair, we sent a message to inquire on getting some public works staff here for that item. So either I can...
Is it an item that you feel comfortable addressing, or do you want us to wait?
I have not been directly involved in this. If there are questions, okay. I probably might be the best resource for you.
Why don't we move through our rest of our agenda, and we'll come back if somebody from Public Works shows up. So item 8A, County Council announcements. I don't believe there are any County Council announcements other than there is need for an executive session today. Item 9A, County Administration announcements.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, a couple of updates for you. Nothing critical, but wanted to just share as many of the Commissioners were able to attend last week. In addition to our State of the County on Monday night, the State of the cities for Eugene and Springfield happened, and as many of you were there, I thought it was really a great week, and the theme that I kept hearing in all of these state of the county and city addresses was partnership. Lane County was recognized both at Eugene and Springfield, State of the Cities, and the cities were recognized at ours. And so we feel good about the regional partnerships that we've developed, and one that I wanted to just share with the board is Commissioner Stewart has been more actively involved with is our work with the metro cities as well as the cities throughout Lane County on looking at the opportunity for shared building services, building inspection and permit processes, and we're working with the state of Oregon and the governor's office, regional solutions and others, and looking at identifying the potential for some type of consolidation and shared services around our building services. So it's a work that's in process, but want to share that with all of you, that we continue to look at opportunities where we can reduce the duplication of services, improve the quality, and ideally reduce the cost for our taxpayers and for our customers. So it's we think that initiative has promise. Certainly, Commissioner Stewart has been vocal about his desire to move forward with some improvements in that area and some shared service, and we'll bring forward to you as we formulate what those partnerships could potentially look like. We'll bring that forward to you, but just want to share that we're beginning those discussions. Also want to share that Commissioner Lyken and I this morning were at the Springfield Chamber breakfast and had an opportunity to report on the state of the county and some things that we were able to achieve in 2014, as well as our direction going forward in 2015. Answered questions about a number of issues: public safety funding, the jail levy, the jail funding audit that we'll be talking about in the coming weeks, the discussion about a vehicle registration fee and other things. So I felt like we had a really positive discussion with the Springfield Chamber, and of course we continue the dialogue with all of our chambers and other community-based organizations. And then finally, I just want to share so that the board is aware that we have scheduled the update on the jail funding audit. Commissioner Bozovich mentioned this earlier, for January 27th. So that will be in front of the board on that date, and an opportunity for, we have now seen the results as we were able to meet last Friday. We finally received the results of the jail funding audit, and certainly looks promising. We'll report the details to you on January 27th, so stay tuned for that. That's all I have for right now, and I think I'm looking around to see if we have our Public Works folks. No, but I can answer any questions about other items if you'd like.
Any questions for Mr. Mokrahajski? If not, we can move on to Commissioner's business and announcements. Any announcements from board members? Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have three here. The first I'd like to announce is this evening at 5 p.m. there will be a ribbon cutting at Coburg to celebrate the completion of their sewer treatment facility. And there's a great deal of number of distinguished speakers there today from all the various partners that have played a role in seeing that happen, and it's open to the public, so hopefully if you have an interest you can be there to celebrate that. The second item is that I'd just like to report that the BLM is getting close to releasing their draft resource management plan that they've been working on the last couple years. It looks like possibly April, more towards the end of April, that draft will be released, and then there'll be about a 90-day, there'll be a 90-day comment period on that draft. As Mr. Perez, the state director, said, we're getting close to halftime. He likened the process to the University of Oregon Ducks football team, that it's going to get fast and furious here in the second half. Lots of picture boards going up, lots of work to be done, but hopes that the process will go good, and that they'll have a defendable, very good project to move forward, or resource management plan that can be adopted by the BLM. And the last item is that, the board, I threw up an idea of a way that Springfield might consider expanding their urban growth boundary and meeting their industrial needs. I think each of you were copied on a letter, but I just want to get it in public. I received a letter from Mayor Lundberg that appreciated the the idea. Their staff has, went through it pretty thoroughly, and there's a few things that they don't feel too confident about being able to maneuver through some roadblocks. One, the House Bill 3337, where they have to establish their own urban growth boundary, and I-5 is the dividing line, with Goshen being on the other side of I-5. They see that as a challenge. So they really appreciated the idea, but at this time they don't believe that it's feasible for them to incorporate that into their urban growth boundary expansion. So thank you for indulging me in offering that idea, and hopefully it wasn't a bust for them, that it actually helped them move the conversation forward.
Thank you. Any other announcements from the board? Seeing and hearing none, any agenda team requests from the board, or work session requests? Seeing and hearing none? Oh.
We had quite a list left over from last time. Maybe it was done, or maybe it was being worked on. What's the status of all those?
I do not have the status with me, but I believe just about every item on the list is either in progress of being worked on or scheduled out for a future board session. So that's my understanding of the last time I was in agenda setting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since the last time we looked at that list, I was sitting in your seat. I'll provide a written response on that, Commissioner Sorensen. That will be in addition to what we have on, each week, administration provides us a list of what the update is on the specifics that have been happening with the agenda team requests. And I'll elaborate on that a little bit in a written response. Thank you very much for bringing that up, Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you. And I see that Mr. Turk has arrived, so we can jump backwards in the agenda here to item 7A, and I already read it, but order 1501, 1307, and this is about a grant submission. So, Mr. Turk.
Good morning, Commissioner Bozovich, Commissioners. I apologize for being late. Anyway, the matter before you this morning is board approval to apply for a grant for cleanup of the McHale's property. And the McHale's property, to give a little history, it's used to be a dry cleaners. It's located in between the library and the Kiva down here on 10th and Olive. And the county got that through tax foreclosure in 2012. And when the county got it, it had already been identified as having hazardous materials from the dry cleaning operations. And that was discovered at the time they were building the library. They found, the chemicals associated with the dry cleaning operation in the groundwater when they were building the library. And several events have happened since that time. When they did that, they put in a pump to pump the groundwater from the library basement that got cleaned through this air stripper on the McHale's property, that then cleaned it before it got put into the stormwater system. When the county got the property, the McHale's, the owners, McHale's, who operated the business as well, actually had insurance that was paying for these operations. It was also paying to do some testing. They dug some test holes around the property and in the property. And when the county got the property, when I had discussions with the DEQ, the next step in the process, and we got the property in September of 2012, the next step in the process was the contractor who was working for the insurance company was going to provide basically a prescription to clean up the property. And that was going to happen later that winter, January. That didn't happen. And essentially, in about April of 2013, the insurance company basically pulled out and said to the DEQ, let's talk settlement. And, that the insurance company stopped paying for the maintenance of the air stripper, which they were doing. DEQ took that over. Then discussions between the DEQ and the insurance company took considerable time, and the matter wasn't settled with a claim, the settlement happening not until this past May in 2014.
So the county, of course, during this time, because we didn't know if the insurance company was going to pay for cleanup or just what the outcome was going to be, so the county was just kind of sitting and waiting until all this got resolved. But we were doing some things, because one of the things, we had early discussions when we first got the property with the insurance company. I met with county council and their council, and one of the items that was discussed was who was going to raise the building, because that would have to come down to do any kind of cleanup work. And I did further investigation on that, because the building was, I was getting calls from the EPD, almost every other day, because someone had broken into the property, was on the property. I got calls from the Eugene Raptor Society. A bald eagle had entered the building through the roof, because there's pigeons in the building, those sort of things. The building would have to come down. So while all this was going on, I went and secured specifications for the asbestos work with the City of Eugene, because the City of Eugene has grants available to do this work. We got grants to do the assessment to see what kind of, the asbestos that was in the building, the things that would need to be done before the building could be raised. And then at this point, when we did that assessment for the asbestos, we also tied in, because of the help with the DEQ, to do an assessment of what needs to be done to clean up the property. And that was finalized just a month or so ago. And then the DEQ said, okay, there's these grants available from the Oregon Business Development Department. And they had talked with them, and we don't know how much is available, but this is the first step in the process. The settlement that the DEQ got, some of the money they're going to put, $200,000, I think they got $400,000 in their settlement, $200,000 they're going to put towards the cleanup of the property. And that would be on top of whatever grant money that the county can secure through this grant that's before you. The grant itself, again, details will be worked out. This is to get authorization to apply for the grant. We're going to ask for $412,000. I don't believe there's a match, and if there is, hopefully that money that the DEQ is going to put up as well will go towards that. So if there's any questions, and
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Turk. A couple of things. You just outlined another example of teamwork between the City of Eugene and the county in making certain this very valuable piece of property, valuable in its location, is available for future use. And we're in the process right now. It's been a long process. I remember when I first heard about when we first excavated for the subterranean parking in the library, when we first heard about the chemicals that were present there. And it kind of, for a while there, looked like we're going to have to postpone the library, perhaps. But what you've outlined is another example of teamwork between the city and the county making this available. The property is kind of a surface parking lot right now, and I believe, do we lease that to the Kiva?
Yes, what we got, the Kiva Grocery next door was interested in using the parking area in front, so we lease it to them, and actually that's been very helpful, because they also keep an eye on the property, and they're the ones that let me know that the eagle was in the building, and also, a couple of last winter when the freeze happened, some pipes burst and there was water sprouting out. So it's been very beneficial, actually, to have them keep an eye on the property.
And that has been a good partnership between the county and the city and private industry. And I'd like to point out that City Councilor George Brown is the operator of the Kiva, and so he's the one who said, hey, there's an eagle in there, as I recall. So, which was it?
The City of Eugene and our meetings that we've had with the DEQ, they've been present and staff person from the city just to keep them up to date. They've been extremely helpful with this grant. There's also, when we did the investigation, they found an underground storage tank in the southwest corner. So I'm also working with the city, because they have access to EPA funds to do UST cleanup. So I'm working with them as well. The city's been wonderful. The DEQ, we're working, the three entities, the state, the city, are all work together. The DEQ's been wonderful in helping us out, because if we do get the grant, one of the things that we will need to do is probably do an IGA with the DEQ, and essentially they would be the contractor responsible for the cleanup. They have the expertise, and obviously they're putting up some funds also. And this is what we did when the we did the sequential biofuels property by LCC. The county had gotten that through tax foreclosure as well, and we had access to EPA grants to do cleanup, and we entered into an IGA with the state for them to basically manage the cleanup. And I think that would be beneficial again, because they've been very helpful, the city's been very helpful, and there has been a lot of cooperation in this.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I'd like to point out that, once again, the location of this property right directly across from the transit station, immediately adjacent to the library, tremendous amount of pedestrian traffic in that area, and it points to something that we get to do that's very exciting, one of the more exciting things that we get to do, and that's how do we redevelop a property into potentially a very valuable commercial property down the road. I'm not sure how far away we are, but this is a step in the direction of putting a structure there and providing opportunity for all those folks who use the transit station, all the folks who live in LCC housing, all the folks who live who visit the library. Tremendous pedestrian traffic in that area. So thank you very much, Mr. Turk. I look forward to seeing this move forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Turk, I want to say thank you for your hard work on this. I believe you informed us when this piece of property was potentially going to be foreclosed on, and the issues around the contamination. In the report, it says here that the value of the property, market value is $330,000, but cleanup costs are projected to be $600. In this instance, the landowner walked away and left us, you, sitting with this piece of property, and what I really appreciate is your ability to go out and find ways to clean this up. And this grant, cautiously optimistic that with the support that we have with the DEQ and matching funds that are available, that hopefully we'll be successfully awarded the funds that you're requesting, and we can get this piece of property cleaned up. And then, as Commissioner Farr said, we can hopefully see it turn into something that's beneficial for our downtown. Just as I was going to mention it, but I'm glad you brought it up, the sequential property on McVeigh Highway. 10 years ago, when I was on the board, you had pretty much already completed the cleanup and went through that process. But what was exciting is that once again you were able to find funds to get that cleaned up, and today it offers a unique opportunity for our citizens to buy biofuels in our county. So, Mr. Turk, I want to say thank you for your hard work and your creativeness, and being able to take something that looks like it's a loser, and hopefully we'll find a way to make it something positive for the county and the citizens we serve.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lykin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Turk, thank you very much for your work on this. As you know, I used to own a few of these and sold them in 2000. And while I was moving in alternative forms before green business was a buzzword, we used to call it pragmatism. But anyway, a couple things, though. So I noticed in the material that looks like DEQ will be the contractor and take the lead. Is that correct?
Yes, we'll do an IGA. That's the anticipation with the DEQ. That, yes, will obviously outline the terms and conditions and how things are going to be paid, and depending on what we get from the grant. But yes, essentially the DEQ would be the contractor. They already have, through the state contractors that they can sub with without, going out to bid and so on. And again, they have, the expertise, and they also have a monetary interest now because they're putting in $200,000. But yes.
Well, my experience is that on these particulars, DEQ does a nice job, and I think when they take the lead and they have their, especially when they have some of their subcontractors involved, they do a nice job on this. So I appreciate that, but I know that forming an IGA, you'll stay involved in that. The other piece is, it's been close to 20 years ago, I think. So I was involved in our association where we actually wrote a bill that provided where the dry cleaners around the state would put funds into what we called a cleanup fund. I know McHale's at one time was paying into that. Is this part of the fund that may be?
No, and I don't know if Seth was going to, Sadowski was from the DEQ,
okay.
Was supposed to be here, but,
Okay.
But I don't think so. I think they stopped, if I remember, stopped paying into that, so those funds aren't available to do this.
Okay, yeah, because you had to be consistent. If you did not pay into them, you did not receive them. That was how we wrote the bill, and I thought it was a fair way to do it. So, okay, that's really what I had, but I want to say thank you very much. I thought the value of it and the cleanup piece, and I know Commissioner Bozievich, we've talked about this in the past, that perchlorethylene can be pretty nasty, and it's interesting solvent. It's very dense. It's about twice the weight of water, and boy, it permeates right through concrete. It takes a while, but it goes right through that, and it's pretty hard to stop unless you put some sort of surface protection on your concrete, which, you know, and I know people get come down on some of these older dry cleaners, but the reality is you didn't have the information that you have today. In fact, people just used to take the stuff out, and, you know, it was weed killer, and I'm being serious. That's kind of what the thought was. They just threw it on the ground and didn't think anything about it. But I think it's obviously come a long way. But thank you very much for this, and I agree with Commissioner Farr. I think this is a very prime piece of property that has real potential for redevelopment. And because of DEQ's involvement, and I think on the cleanup, and with your work involved in this as well, I think the cleanup will go very satisfactory, where that property then can become a nice piece of property just to kind of redevelop in that area. So I thank you for your good work.
Thank you.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozievich. Mr. Chair, ever so briefly, this is an example of urban renewal at work. The Eugene City Library would not have been built without the downtown Eugene Urban Renewal District. Urban renewal districts are a very valuable tool that can help us to develop and redevelop property inside of cities in particular. And, the downtown urban renewal district's given us all kinds of improvements that we see downtown now. For instance, LCC participated in that. The library, as I mentioned, Center Court, a lot of the new buildings downtown would not have happened without urban renewal. So it's a very valuable tool that sometimes is maligned, but almost always provides outcomes that everybody is very satisfied with. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say real quick that, this is just one more example of where Lane County is working towards getting employment and jobs in the community. I don't think people are aware of what happens to these tax foreclosed properties that we inherit. Quite often, the reason they became tax foreclosed is people abandon them because there's some huge problem with them. We ended up with sequential biofuels. We have this property. There's others in our books. And I don't think people understand how our staff works to resolve those issues and then get them back out on the tax rolls and then also become a place of employment. I often hear the comments from the public, why aren't you doing more to create jobs? And improve the economy of Lane County. Well, this is a perfect example of where our staff is working, with different agencies and working to get grants that wouldn't be accessible to the private property owner. Ultimately, to take this piece of property that, is contaminated, and get it fixed, get it back on the tax rolls. It's in downtown. I'm sure when it does come back on the tax rolls, there are going to be people employed, constructing whatever goes there, and people employed at whatever's there, and possibly new housing. And I just think it's one of the services people don't realize the county governments do. And it isn't unique to Lane County, because all the counties are the agency that ends up with tax foreclosed properties on the books like this. So every county in Oregon has to deal with similar properties, and I think our staff has done a great job of getting these properties resolved and then back out and back into the private sector's hands where they can provide employment and housing for our citizens. So I really want to appreciate that. Is there any further discussion on the item or questions for Mr. Turk? Seeing none, Commissioner Stewart.
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval of Order 15-01-13-07 in the matter of authorizing the submission of a $412,000 brownfields cleanup grant to the Oregon Business Development Department for cleanup of county-owned property identified as McHale's Cleaners.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion to the motion?
Mr. Chair.
Lawrence.
Thank you very much for all your great work on this, and I'm glad the board's taking this action today. I think it's worth pointing out that one way our economy is measured is by the number of dollars that are spent and earned, earned and spent. We might use the term gross national product. And, spending money to clean up a site, taxpayer money in this case, to clean up a site, is a good thing. And it does make the economy better that we've cleaned it up. But you know what? It would have been a lot better if we hadn't had to clean it up. And I think prevention is a lot cheaper in the long run than cleaning up. So I think the good news is we're taking this action, we're putting people to work, we're using public's money wisely, we're taking care of tax foreclosed property. All these are valid things that counties should be doing. We're doing it. But I like to point out that the huge amount of money that's being expended on this is because of a decision that was made long time ago, and hopefully we've learned from that. But we really should recognize that preventing harm and preventing damage is really a lot better off in the long run. Even though the way we measure economic progress in our country is, hey, this is money we're spending to do some good, to clean this up. But just think of what we could have done with that money if we hadn't had to spend it for this. We could have done other things. So anyway, a lot of that is, I won't say above your pay grade, Mr. Turk, but let's say adjacent to your pay grade. And I know you don't have a whole lot to do with all that, but you do have a lot to do with the work you're doing in terms of getting this property foreclosed, for failure to pay taxes, and then getting it cleaned up and ready for sale. So thanks so much.
Thank you for the great description of the economic concept of opportunity costs. So, any further discussion of the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Yes. That was moved and seconded. Moved by Commissioner Stewart, seconded by Commissioner Liken. Seeing that we ran down through the rest of our agenda, is there any further business before we move to executive session?
Review.
Seeing none, then the Board of Commissioners will meet in executive session to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. This executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.6602H, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed above. We reserve the right to come back into public session should the need arise.
Mr. Chair, regarding the reservation to come back into open session, could we do that if only to announce that we're not going to be meeting tomorrow, if we're not meeting tomorrow? I wanted to make it clear that, if we do need to come back into executive after executive session, which you've done, that we do reserve that right, but that we notify the public and let the public know whether the board is meeting tomorrow or later today, so that it's clear from our agenda that we publish that we are meeting today, and we reserve the right to meet tomorrow, but we're not going to meet tomorrow, as I understand it.
Correct, and what I was planning to announce as I was finishing that statement up was that if we choose not to come back into public session, that we will adjourn until Tuesday the 27th, because we are not meeting next week at 9 a.m.
Or tomorrow.
No, well, there's no plan for a meeting tomorrow at this time. There's nothing on the agenda for tomorrow, and so that what I was going to announce was that should we choose to adjourn out of executive session without coming back into public session, that our next meeting would be on Tuesday, January 27th at 9 a.m. here in Harris Hall.
Excellent, thank you.
So just to make that clear, that we are not meeting next week with the Martin Luther King holiday. So with that, I'd like to recess us for about 10 minutes to move up into the Board of County Commissioners Conference Room, and we'll meet in executive session then, and we may or may not come back to public session, but most likely we will not, and we'll adjourn until next Tuesday, the 27th at 9 a.m. So we are recessed.